Hey everybody, Star 6 Wars 1 here, and welcome to the next movie of the month of love and heartbreak. Now we are purely for the countdowns going to the heartbreak side of things with the top 10 heartbreaking romantic scenes in anime. Oh god. Okay. This list is going to be very similar to my next countdown, top 10 saddest moments. But unlike saddest moments, which are just purely sad, these ones more so have to do with couples. And only couples. So there will be no bromance stuff or anything like that. And they usually have to be either a canon potential pair or a canon couple. And something bad happens to them. So, undoubtedly, there will be major spoilers for pretty much every single one of them. Entries here. No honorable mentions needed for this one, so let us begin. Number 10. Misuzu rejected from 11 Eyes. Now, this does not actually happen till the final episode, but there's this thing with Misuzu and Kakeru going on, and the two were basically either going to hit it off, or he was going to go back to Yuka. I mentioned in a previous countdown, that he went with Yuka. And he had to tell Misuzu about the alternate dimension, the alternate timeline thing, and him pretty much saying, I can't. I'm sorry, but I can't. And she is basically heartbroken. She tries to hide it well, but you could tell she was pretty damn heartbroken, but still was going to be loyal to him through the end. Like the last countdown, this is lower on the list because in the manga, and in one of the routes of the visual novel, they do end up together, so this is lower on the list for that, but I did find a heartbreaking scene, and it is my number 10. Number 9. Kenshin's Goodbye from Rurouni Kenshin. Now, this is at the very beginning of the Kyoto arc, and Kenshin had just been encountered by an old rival/enemy, Saito, to be recruited to hunt down another Batosai who had been, well, he turned rogue and was now threatening the country of Japan. His girlfriend, not an actual girlfriend by the way, at the time, Kaoru, didn't want him to go, and they all thought they convinced him to not leave, when in fact he left anyways, but not before saying goodbye to Kaoru. This scene is one of the most sad scenes I've seen of Rurouni Kenshin, because it leaves Kaoru depressed, and Kenshin just walks off after that, unknown if he will ever return. And at the time, I'm betting a lot of people wouldn't have known if he returned. We'll know now, of course, but we didn't know back then. Anyways, it is my number 9 for those reasons. Moving on. Number 8. Shiro's rejection from Fate Stay Night. Okay, Shiro's problems aside, he had taken Saber out on a date, and then was later attacked by Gilgamesh. He wanted her to stay in their world and stop her from her very self-destructive path. Which ultimately, as you can tell by this entry here, he failed to do. And she pretty much said, I'll fight alongside you, but not as your friend or lover, as your servant. And this does hurt him. It's obvious in the show it hurts him, even though it's not always that good. With the romantic parts of it, along with Saber, sorry, I'm not a big supporter of that ship. I like them as friends and close comrades, but romantic interests, you know my opinions on that. Though I admit that this scene is rather heartbreaking, and I think it's a little more than numbers 9 and 10. The reason it's down lower is because of the last episode and what happens in it. To those of you who've seen Fate's Stay Night, you already know. But they are still in my number 8 regardless. Number 7. Asuna's death from Sword Art Online. Now, this one takes place in the midpoint of the story and at the very end of the Ankred arc. At the time, Kirito was battling Kayaba and was losing. Pretty badly at that. So Asuna takes a very nasty hit from Kayaba and ends up dying. And as you know, in SAO, at least the first half, if you die in the game, you die in real life. By this point, Kirito and Asuna depended on each other for survival. And after she dies, he is pretty much essentially broken and just takes every single hit Kayaba has at him. And unfortunately, he does look like he's about to die, but then decides to take Kayaba with him in a final stroke of revenge. And actually, the reason it's on number 7 is because it is faked out in the end, but it's still on the list for what it does to Kirito when it's not faked out. Moving on. Number 6. Seventh's death from Future Diary. Now, I've mentioned these two in my top 12 couples countdown, and I gotta say, their death is actually pretty damn sad. They were fighting Yuki and Yuno for the second time. I think due to some accidents or bombs, I'm not exactly sure which. They were pretty much hampered down and buried under rubble. We know that Marco had survived, but I was not going to survive. She was too badly injured and was dying. So, instead of fleeing to get medical attention, he gives Yuki and Yuno his parachute so they can survive while he dies along with I. Like I said in that countdown, if that's not love, I don't know what is. Honestly, and you were by this point starting to root for them because they were more likable than the main two characters. Okay, am I the only one that thinks that there's something kind of wrong with that? But anyways, other than all that, they are my number 6. Number 5. Millie's grieving from Trigun. Now, as I mentioned in the previous countdown, Millie and Wolfwood were a potential couple. So why in this heartbreaking scene, oh, what the hell do you think? Okay, I'm not gonna say it out loud till the next countdown, but she grieves very late in the story after a certain event that's probably obvious by this point happens. And unfortunately, that grieving, although it's distracted in the last 2 episodes, you could almost argue that she's grieving the entire rest of the series. And by that point, there were only 3 episodes left. We start to see it in the end of episode 20. I think it was 24, yeah. No, wait, 23. Episode 24, she spent trying to motivate Meryl while still grieving. Episode 25, she seems to have distracted herself, but truth be told, she doesn't seem to be putting up with Meryl's thing anymore, showing that she's matured through the harshness of what happened, and we don't see her much in episode 26, so it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, her grieving is really heartbreaking because of what happened. Again, I won't spoil it till the next countdown. But anyway, that's why her grieving is my number 5. Number 4. Nia's death from Gurren Lagann. Oh my god, not this one, no. Okay, for further reference, this death I knew from about the halfway point onwards. I dreaded watching Gurren Lagann past there, even though it had that second half actually had some of the best episodes in the entire series. And then came Nia's death. The main reason why I hate the ending of Gurren Lagann. It didn't need to happen. You are so close, Skynax. So close to a happy ending. And all you had to do was rewrite one thing, and Simone and Nia could have been a happy couple, but no! They had to have one of them die and the other one spend his entire life alone. Why? Okay, besides sounding like a fanboy, this actually is a rather heartbreaking scene. As it really does, well, he doesn't show the grief. You know it's there. You never, ever, I think, see his face in there. Especially as he's walking away. You know the pain he must be in. He's now not only lost his big brother, but his wife. On his wedding day. If that's not sad, I don't know what is. And that is why they're my number 4. Number 3. Chihiro throws away Renji from F: A Tale of Memories. Oh boy! This takes place after an implied sex scene. No, I'm not kidding there. Chihiro has a memory defect, as probably you know if you watched my review or a few of my countdowns. She and Renji were becoming a couple throughout the story, but because of the heartbreak it was causing him to have her forget about him every 13 hours. And the thing is, he was willing to put up with him. He's a freaking saint for that. But Chihiro decides to take the choice out of his hands and force him to break up with her by throwing away all of her memories of him written down in her notebook, including the fact that she loved him. And she just threw it all away so that she wouldn't cause him any more pain. Even though it did cause him more pain and made me tear up. Honestly, the only reason this is number 3 and not higher is because there is still a happy ending for them. And yes, I just spoiled the ending. But that's why they're my number 3. Number 2. Lelouch's whole love life from Code Geass. Okay, I'm going to point this out right now. He had 3, potentially 4, love interests. And how many does he end up with? None. Let's go off the list. That one little chick who said, let's all have a harem and share 'em. She ends up not liking Lelouch after she finds out what he really is. And kind of betrays him. Colin. Lelouch has to break her heart in order to save her from his own fate. Because by that point, the Zero Requiem was already well underway. C2. Probably the closest of the love interests he could have had after the next one I'm about to mention. She loses her memory, he becomes very distant from her, and We don't see very much interaction with them together, couple-wise, or mostly otherwise. And even at the end, though we do see C2 crying over him. And finally, Shirley, the closest person who came to him maybe loving back, shot by Rollo. Fuck you, Rollo. I still hate you. Honestly, his love life is rather tragic because he could have had 4 different people, but in the end, ended up with none of them. It's worse than that, but that's going into major spoilers, so I'm going to avoid that. But that's why Lelouch's love life is my number 2. And my number 1 heartbreaking romantic scene in anime is Nagisa's death from Clanad. Okay, I'm going to let Shadow's opinion first come into play before I go any further.
Nagisa from okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I just can't. It's way too painful. Just remembering this. I need a tissue.
But seriously, this is, for me, the most heartbreaking romantic scene ever. What I mean by saying that, I mean that all the scenes have romance involved, but they're all heartbreaking. This is the quintessential one. Because not only is she dying, and she was giving Tomoya all the emotional support he needed, but she died giving childbirth. Meaning she just died, leaving a baby and a heartbroken and devastated Tomoya, along with her parents, no less. Seriously, this is sad. It's sad for her family and respect, but look at what happens to Tomoya afterwards. Just look at him for the next 5 years in episode, I think it's 17. He's broken by her death. Everything he dreamed of with her, destroyed in an instant. Him regretting ever meeting her because he feels responsible for her death. There are no words to say how heartbreaking this scene is. And that is why it is my number 1. Anyways, that's all from me. This has been Star 6 Wars 1. And next countdown, we are going to be continuing with the sadness for one final countdown of the month of love and heartbreak with the top 15 saddest moments in anime. See you guys then.